International airline pilots, co-pilots, and flight engineers. Whether you're traveling down south for business or across the sea on vacation, you'll often need to turn to international airlines if you plan on getting anywhere in a reasonable amount of time. Pilots do the obvious. They fly the plane. While co-pilots may not appear to be doing anything special, they are actually an essential part of flying the plane and assist the pilot in controlling the other half of the huge console they both share. On top of the job being mildly dangerous and the long hours of flights over far distances, it is also quite stressful considering the pilot is responsible for making sure the giant human-filled tube of metal doesn't explode into a million pieces. As well, there is the fear from recent terrorist threats towards commercial airlines. While most pilots and airlines will likely never experience a hijacking or terrorist attack, pilots still have to deal with that fear and anxiety before and during every single flight. And with the average pilot flying between 700 to 900 hours a year, that's a lot of stress. However, that doesn't account for the hours that they spend on the ground without pay doing paperwork, and despite what you think, pilots don't get to stick around in the place they've flown to as they generally fly back home within the hour. International pilots are fairly well incentivized, with the highest ranking pilots taking home around $132,000 a year. While the salary and bragging rights make the job fairly rewarding, the unpaid work and time spent away from their families make it equally monotonous. Lawyers. Lawyers are a very important part of society, both protecting innocent people from incarceration and making sure the guilty have justice served. The judge is also a big part of the legal system, but they are not the focus as they are usually paid less than the lawyers. Lawyers aren't always seen as the good guys, considering they frequently lead to potentially guilty criminals roaming free, are known for overcharging clients, and are frequently stereotyped as abusing the legal system. This leads to a risky reputation, which isn't helped by the fact that most lawyers get paid no matter the case, leading to ridiculous lawsuits and unwinnable cases popping up all the time. With an annual salary of up to $133,000, lawyers are fairly well motivated to take every case they can, even if they know the court won't side with them. Depending on how successful a lawyer is, they can earn quite a lot more or very little by comparison. As of 2015, there are 603,000 lawyers laying around, and considering how high crime levels are and how many false accusations have been thrown out lately, there's no shortage of work for them. Marketing managers. Marketing managers are the operators of marketing firms. From big to small, proper marketing is important for pretty much every business there is. When a business needs to get their name out there, they will hire a marketing firm just for that. This will often include local advertising through billboards, news articles, and even commercials. Outside of that, they can also advertise online through ads on YouTube and other popular websites. Managers will oversee this operation to make sure nothing goes wrong and that the advertisements properly represent the product. Oftentimes, a representative from the company hiring the marketing firm will help with how the product appears on the advertisements. The annual income of the average marketing manager is around $137,000. Managers can also work from within a company if their product is long-living or they represent a large brand. This means that companies don't need to hire a whole firm and instead either absorb a pre-existing firm or hire a new marketing department as a permanent part of the company. As of 2015, the U.S. currently has over 184,000 working marketing managers. Architectural and engineering managers. Architectural and engineering managers plan, direct, and organize architectural and engineering corporations. Whenever you see a building in a city beginning construction, or one currently under construction, it is often being worked on by a construction company, who is being managed by an architectural planning company, who is being managed by an architectural manager. Talk about chain of command. This means that, in the end, most decisions that are of any importance for the project at hand will be left up to the manager to decide. On top of that, the job comes comes with all of the fun of managing a company, so there are always papers to sign and deals to be made. The annual income for this job is usually upwards of $138,000, easily enough to support the wife and kids at home, but the job often includes long hours and being called in on days you really wish you could have just slept in. The job requires a lot of dedication, meaning, yeah, the wife and kids at home get to live pretty nice, but you won't be around that often during the day. It is still an exceedingly high-paying and successful job nonetheless. Petroleum engineers. A petroleum engineer is an engineer in the field of natural gas and oil. Basically, they're the guys that make sure that the gas for your car won't blow up your engine. Just like any engineering job, it has its ups and downs. Highly experienced and well-footed petroleum engineers can have starting salaries up to $147,000 annually, which makes it one of the highest-paying jobs after the kings of the corporate ladder, CEOs, and doctors. This also makes it the highest-paying engineering job as of 2015. The science of the job involves figuring out how much of each resource is recoverable in volume. This is almost always an estimation, as they can never be 100% accurate, but the goal is to be as close to perfect as possible. The job also involves researching new ways to recover more of the resource so they can maximize their efficiency. This leads to new technology being frequently developed on the job, which in turn increases the productivity of the resource. The market is actually pretty volatile, considering that one bad batch can cost a company millions of dollars, so it's no wonder that big oil companies only hire the best of the best. Chief executives. Ever wanted to be CEO of a company? Chief executive officers, or CEOs, are actually quite common, with there being over 240,000 CEOs in the US alone, with the more successful guys making up to $180,000 a year. The title CEO is held by the man in charge, and they usually either own or operate an organization or company. Since that is pretty much all that defines a CEO, the job description is not that specific, and will usually involve many different tasks depending on the company. Commonly, CEOs are required to fill out paperwork and make very important decisions for the company, and this can include deals with other companies, the purchase of assets, and in smaller companies, can even contain mundane tasks like hiring new workers. Oftentimes, CEOs will have secretaries and other peripheral assistants to do minor work they wish to not be involved with, and to help manage their own personal timetables and schedules. Bigwigs like these can sometimes be considered lazy or otherwise pompous, but they are actually often hard-working individuals who have to be very active in their work environment to keep things afloat. CEOs drive companies to either success or failure and are pretty much the single most important person in the company. CEOs are often thought of as high-income individuals, and considering they are at the top of the corporate ladder, it's a fair assumption. Orthodontists. $201,000 is the annual income of your higher-paid orthodontists. When someone has the need to become brace-faced because their teeth decided they just really weren't feeling straight anymore, the orthodontist is the man for the job. An orthodontist is someone who specializes in the diagnosis and correction of teeth. For the most part, the job is like a referral-based specialist, meaning that after a dentist gives a checkup and decides the patient either needs braces or wisdom teeth removed, they'll be referred to an orthodontist. Unlike most of the other medical professions on this list, an orthodontist is not in a position where they are dealing with life and death. Oftentimes, it's just the health of the patient's teeth. This means the job is much less stressful than a surgeon's day-to-day job. Over 6,000 orthodontists are actively working in the U.S. as of 2015, and compared to the population of the country, orthodontists are actually fairly rare, especially considering how often their work is in demand. Gynecologists. Gynecology is the science of the female reproductive organs, which for those who don't know also includes the breasts. For the most part, any ailment dealing with the female reproductive organs are usually inspected by and dealt with by a gynecologist. Gynecologists deal with anything from lower scale infections in those areas to more severe cases such as cancer. Most doctors will recommend girls to have their first checkup with a gynecologist between the ages of 13 and 16, just to make sure everything is up to snuff, which really does not leave too much to be desired. Unlike surgeons or an anesthesiologist, Gynecology is a calmer field that requires much less stressful situations such as active surgery. Instead, gynecologists often work from a doctor's office to do their regular check-ins. They are still very important as they make sure parts of the body that they work with stay healthy and complication-free. Surgeons, clocking in at up to $240,000 annually, the country's top surgeons come very close to anesthesiologists in how much they take home. The surgeon's job is extremely difficult and requires a lot of concentration from the operator. After the preparation for surgery has been completed, the surgeons are ready to move on and get to work. Surgeons have a lot to do once they are in the workroom. First thing first, they must surgically open the affected area on a patient and then do everything they can to solve whatever problem they're facing. Hours of stressful operation and procedures later, the surgeon finally finishes up their primary role of solving the ailment and must now stabilize the patient and bring him to a state where they can be left to rest until they are either better or at least prepared for another surgery. Given the fact that most surgeries are life and death for the patient, we probably don't have to emphasize the amount of stress surgeons go through before, during, and after surgeries. Anesthesiologist. An anesthesiologist, or sleepy bedtime doctor, is the person who numbs you and puts you to sleep whilst you're prepped for surgery. This is commonly done for surgery that would otherwise cause the receiver massive amounts of pain. Without anesthetic, many surgeries would not even be possible, as the pain alone would kill the average person. Anesthesiologists must choose the perfect amount of medication to subdue each patient, as too little will cause them to wake up and die, and too much will cause them to stop breathing and die. Often an anesthesiologist will also be required to monitor the patient's well-being during and after the surgery, making sure their heart rate remains normal and that the patient is okay. Anesthesiologists make up to $264,000 annually, which is insane. This